Our movie begins with Sarah and her son Josh. She was out taking him for a little outing, and she keeps remembering and telling her son stories about his father, the hero Leo. We learn that Leo was American and Sarah is German. After a while, she gets up to get some cream for Josh, and suddenly she hears the sound of an airplane above her. Her face changes color 100 times, and she starts shaking as memories of the last mission she went on with her beloved Leo flashback. Suddenly, this poor kid passes by to get his ball, and my dear, what happens next is shocking. She freaks out and nearly attacks the kid, as if in combat. Luckily, she snaps out of it at the last moment, pulls herself together, and heads straight home. She had devoted her life to her son Josh and lived on the memory of her husband Leo. After some time, she goes to the embassy to submit travel documents because she got a job offer in America. She thought it would be a good chance for Josh to meet his father's family. Then she receives a message from a journalist telling her he has new information about the Afghanistan incident and asks her to urgently watch the next video and see if she recognizes anyone in it. When she turns to look at Josh, she's shocked to find him missing. She starts calling out and looking for him until she finds him standing far away, and she tells him not to ever move away from her side again. She keeps telling Josh that they'll be traveling to live in America. They arrive at the American Consulate, and she signs in with Josh. She notices that there are cameras at every step inside the building. She puts all her belongings in a tray, takes her file, and goes to sit in the waiting area to wait for her turn in line. But little Josh was restless, constantly moving around, so she gets up and goes to ask the staff member about her turn because Josh was causing a scene and tiring her out. The staff tells her there's a playroom for kids at the end of the hallway. Of course, Josh gets excited the moment he sees the toys and asks Sarah to let him stay and play for a bit. She agrees and goes to grab a coffee. A little while later, she hears her number being called from window 6, so she gets up to fetch Josh. On her way, she notices 2 suspicious-looking individuals who seem like they're up to something shady, but she brushes it off and doesn't think much of it. As soon as she enters the playroom, she's shocked to find that Josh is nowhere to be seen. Fear kicks in, and she starts calling for him, saying, "Now's not the time for games. Come out, sweetheart." But there's no answer. She searches the entire room, but unfortunately, there's no sign of Josh at all. Panic sets in, and she rushes to security. When they're of no help, she demands to speak to someone in charge. That's when Mr. Eric arrives and introduces himself as the head of security for the entire place, accompanied by his assistant Don. He listens to everything Sarah says and realizes her son is missing. He personally takes her to search all the offices and keeps trying to calm her down, saying, "I worry about my daughter too. If your son is here, then he's safe. Don't worry, we'll find him. There's only one exit door, and it's impossible for him to have left alone." But Sarah insists, saying, "I saw another exit, and I remember those 2 men who looked nervous when they saw me." When Eric goes with her to check, he tells her this door can't be opened. It leads to a high-security zone. Then Don arrives and whispers something to Eric, who asks Sarah to speak privately. In his office, he opens her file and discovers that she was part of the Special Forces, a combat expert, and had served in the Defense Forces in Afghanistan in 2017. When she hears this, she snaps, saying, "That's all nonsense and irrelevant. I just want my son right now." Then Don brings out another file, and here comes the catastrophe, my friend. He tells her that her son was never recorded as entering the building with her, that there's no log of him at all. Sarah loses it and yells at him, "Are you insane or something? I walked in with him in front of everyone." She also tells Don, "You saw us, and you even greeted Josh yourself." But he calmly replies, "No, that never happened." Furious, Sarah demands access to the security camera footage. Eric tries to calm her down and asks Don to leave the room. Sarah insists on calling the German police, and Eric immediately picks up the phone and calls them himself, since they had already been notified as soon as she reported her son missing. When Sarah finally gets on the phone and tells them what happened, she realizes they're treating her like she's crazy. They inform her that they're not allowed to enter or search the consulate because the place is protected by diplomatic immunity. They ask her to leave and promise they'll follow up on the investigation. But this response enrages Sarah, and she says, "I'm not leaving here without my son." Just as she's about to rush out again, Eric grabs her and tells her, "Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. You won't escape right in front of me." He tells her he'll overlook her behavior just this once because he understands her panic for her child. He instructs her to sit and wait for her scheduled exit time, and Don stays to guard her. After a while, Don gets a phone call and tells her, "Don't move from here until I come back." She stays seated, thinking about what to do in this nightmare she's trapped in. She decides to call her mother, tells her where she is, and everything that happened. Her mother is shocked and says, "What were you even doing there? Put someone from the consulate on the phone right now." Strangely, she also asks, "Have you been taking your medication or not?" This question upsets Sarah, so she hangs up on her and starts looking for something to unlock the other door. She finds a hairpin and uses it to pick the lock. Then she takes off her jacket and grabs a random file to look like one of the employees. She walks out, blending in as if she works there. At the same time, Don tells his colleague that her shift is over and that he'll take her place so she can get some rest. Because they were talking, they don't notice Sarah slipping past the security camera. She manages to sneak out through a window and walks carefully along the outer glass ledge until she decides to jump to the other side. She lands hard, but despite the pain, she gets up and keeps going to search for her son. She breaks open a door and enters, searching every corner. Eventually, she finds a section with several rooms labeled guest apartments. She sees a bag in front of one of the doors, tries it, and it opens. She slips inside quietly. Suddenly, Sarah finds a woman standing right in front of her, so she quickly covers her mouth in shock. She asks the woman what language she speaks, and the girl calms down and responds. Sarah immediately asks her, "Have you seen a little boy around here? My son was kidnapped from the playroom." While searching the girl's bag, she finds one filled with jewelry, but then there's a knock at the door. Sarah pleads with her, "Please, don't tell anyone I'm here." And the woman opens the door and takes the package without revealing that Sarah is inside. After she closes the door, Sarah asks, "Why didn't you tell security?" The woman replies, "I did, but something's wrong here. It seems like someone from the consulate is behind this." She goes on to say that she's been stuck here for 2 months and offers to help Sarah find her son in exchange for helping her escape from the consulate. Meanwhile, Eric tells his superior, "I don't think she's dangerous. Maybe she's just caught up in a delusion, but her face doesn't look like someone who's harmful." His boss replies, "Regardless, we can't just let a former Special Forces officer wander freely around our facility." Eric argues, if we report her, she'll be arrested and jailed, and that'll destroy her life, just because she came here and her son went missing. The superior coldly replies, "Forget that nonsense. Go now and find her, even if you have to drag her out from underground. They search for her everywhere, but can't locate her." Back with Sarah, she introduces herself to the woman named Irina. Irina turns on loud music and tells Sarah it's so no one can hear them talking. When Sarah asks her about a phone, Irina explains that they took her SIM card. The internal network is extremely weak and the wireless connections are tightly secured. Sarah asks, "Are you a political refugee?" Irina pauses, then says, "You could say that." She explains that this part of the building only contains storage rooms and guest apartments. Sarah then asks about the section next to them. Irina says it's a childcare center for staff, and there's also a warehouse beside it. When Sarah asks what the warehouse is used for, Irina replies, if they ever wanted to smuggle someone in or out, that's the only place they could use. Sarah immediately says, "Then we're heading to the warehouse now." They run into a security guard on the way, and Sarah grabs him and doesn't let go until he's unconscious. Irina is stunned by Sarah's combat skills and tells her, "Because of that skill, I've decided to help you. If you help me." She's surprised and says, "How come they didn't seal the exits or even declare an alert? They should have seen us on the security cameras." Then she realizes the cameras must be disabled. They continue on their way to the warehouse, and the moment she senses someone approaching, she and Irina quickly hide. Sarah suddenly recalls scenes from the war, becoming visibly anxious and shaken. When Irina asks, "What's wrong?" Sarah brushes it off, replying, "Don't worry about it, let's just focus on what we're doing." She then rushes to the warehouse office and discovers that the last vehicle left at 1 while Josh disappeared at 2. That means thankfully he hasn't been moved yet and is likely still here. She also finds out that the next truck is scheduled to leave in an hour. Sarah tells Irina, "You have to stay here." But Irina protests, "What am I supposed to do here?" Sarah says she'll smuggle her out in the next truck. Then Sarah spots a locker labeled Glenville University, the same name that was on the bags carried by the 2 people she had seen earlier. She rushes to open the locker and indeed finds the bag. Inside is a large quantity of drugs. Sarah tells Irina the plan has changed, and they head back to Irina's room and hide the bag. Sarah says, "Josh must have seen them. That's why they were acting nervous. They're the ones who took him." Irina responds, "I don't care about any of that. Just tell me how you're going to get me out of here." Sarah says, You can't leave now. If you do, everything will fall into chaos. Irina then says, maybe your son was never really with you, just like they've been saying. So Sarah pulls out the toy and says, this belongs to Josh. I found it in the playroom. Irina responds, you seem totally delusional, and tries to walk away. But Sarah stops her and says she saw the flash drive hidden in her clothes, then demands, tell me who you really are and what you're doing here. Just then, there's a knock at the door. Sarah hides quickly. Two people enter and grab Irina. As she screams for help, Sarah is forced to come out. She grabs one of them and hits him, but the second one grabs her and hits her back. She keeps fighting and eventually knocks him down. Just as she tries to escape, she comes face to face with Don, who holds her at gunpoint. Eric appears behind her and catches her off guard, then orders Don to clear out Irina's room. Sarah keeps thinking about her husband and son, and when she comes to, she finds them standing in front of her. She tells them, my son disappeared and you know it. You're just pretending not to. Deborah tries to calm her down and tells her to relax a little. Then she informs her that she called her mother and also found out about her mental health condition, that she suffers from depression and has episodes of delusion. But Sarah tells them, I'm not going to listen to this. I know you're just stalling for time until the truck takes my son away. Then Eric shows her the security footage, and to her shock, she really sees herself alone without Josh. Deborah explains to her that what happened is due to her condition and asks her to try and remember clearly where she left the boy. At the end of the conversation, she tells Sarah that the German authorities are coming to take her. The poor woman starts screaming and crying, but no one seems to care. A while later, someone unties her. It's Irina, who tells her she has to get up quickly because the story about her son is staged and they have to find him before it's too late. She also informs her that the incident with the men who attacked them has been completely covered up, the place cleaned out, and luckily no one noticed the bag of drugs. But Sarah is so out of it that she starts thinking Irina is just another hallucination. Irina tries to convince her she's real, and now is not the time for delusions. She grabs scissors to cut herself and prove it, but Sarah stops her just in time and says, get up, we have to find my son. They climb out the window, and Sarah keeps insisting Dawn must be involved in her son's kidnapping. She tells Irina they have to find the people who own that bag. Irina says there's a conference happening now, so they decide to sneak in without being noticed. Meanwhile, Dawn checks on Sarah and realizes she's escaped. At the same time, Irina uploads the bag's description online and writes, if the owner wants it back, let them say what's inside. Sarah still can't believe what's real, whether to trust herself or believe Eric that Josh never entered with her in the first place. Irina hands her a rubber band and says, this will help you tell the difference between illusions and reality. Then she starts telling her own story and explains that she wants to get out of here so she can see her mother. She also tells her about the job offer she got in America, and a moment later the owner of the bag responds and they agree on a time and place to meet, choosing a nearby restaurant. They head there quickly, and Irina sits at a distance to keep watch. After a while, the guy shows up. It's the same man Sarah had seen before. He tells her he has nothing to do with her missing son, and that the bag is the only thing that belongs to him. Then he reveals that he knows where Josh is, and that he saw where the kidnappers hid him. But of course, Sarah doesn't buy his story. She figures out he's lying. She tells him she knows he's in trouble because of the bag and offers to help him in exchange for his help. He tells her the only thing he can do is disable the security cameras for a while and give her a full layout of the place. He says, follow me to the restroom. Just then, Eric enters the restaurant with his daughter, and Sarah quickly hides from him. Meanwhile, Eric calls Don and informs him that Sarah has escaped. Don immediately gets up to go, but unfortunately, Irina forgets her teddy bear phone, and Sarah grabs it, promising to return it after she finds her son. Then she enters the restroom where the man is waiting, and he tells her they only have 1 hour before the cameras are reactivated. He hands her a map of the entire place and explains all the sections, adding that he suspects her son is being kept in the detention cells because they're close to the playroom. He also tells her where Eric's office is. Sarah punches him in the face to make it look like he resisted, just in case someone finds out she was with him, and then she leaves quickly. Irina is left wondering what the connection is between these people and Josh's kidnapping, while one disaster seems to follow another. Around the same same time, Eric learns about the camera situation. Meanwhile, Sarah and Irina sneak into Eric's office, and Irina starts searching through his computer. And here, my friend, comes the real shock. She discovers that Eric had been tracking Sarah and digging into her background. Sarah realizes that her coming to this place was no coincidence at all. On the other side, Don and Eric are reviewing the camera footage, and Eric tells Don that Sarah might be accessing the system through his device. Don is immediately ordered to go get it. Sarah remembers the video of the journalist and quickly checks her device, discovering that Eric was actually at the scene in Afghanistan on the day of the incident, meaning he must be connected to that cursed day. She immediately calls the journalist and tells him there's a blurry photo, asking him to enhance it so she can identify who was with Eric. From the journalist, she learns that Eric used to be a soldier, but they discharged him after an injury. Not only that, he was surrounded by a lot of suspicions and corruption scandals. Then comes the biggest surprise. The journalist tells her Eric had a hand in the incident that happened to them. At that moment, she sees Jesse Don arriving, but Sarah is determined to wait for the enhanced image. She keeps waiting as Don gets closer, and just as he's about to catch them, they grab their things and escape. Unfortunately, he spots them, and a brief fight breaks out. But in the end, they manage to get away. Sarah exits through the same spot she had used earlier, and as soon as she opens the laptop, the shocking truth is confirmed. Eric was indeed among those involved in the fatal incident. She recalls that terrible day and decides she has to go back to the warehouse. Rena tells her, "Come on, we finally got out, and what we have on them is more than enough to expose them." But Sarah knows that if she leaves without her son, she may never see him again. So she heads straight back to the warehouse and tells Irina to go and leave the rest to her, that she'll handle it alone now. If fate allows her to survive, she promises to come see Irina again. She thanks Irina for everything she's done and explains that she'll distract the men so Irina can get in the car and escape safely. That's exactly what she does. Everyone rushes towards Sarah as she runs and dodges from one spot to another, doing her best to resist. Eventually, she comes face to face with Eric, and they get into a fierce fight. But in the last moment, she manages to free herself. Just when she's about to finish him off, he tells her Josh is with him, and if anything happens to him, she'll never see her son again. She tells him she knows everything, that he was involved in the massacre. When he refuses to tell her where Josh is, she hits him and escapes, running off and searching every possible place. But unfortunately, she couldn't reach Josh, so an idea pops into her head. Since the security cameras have been fixed, she wouldn't be able to continue searching freely. She creates a makeshift device herself and throws it, and boom, an explosion goes off. Everyone starts to panic, and of course, Eric didn't want to report it, but the situation spirals out of his control. Deborah finds out about the explosion and tells him to do what needs to be done. Naturally, the first step is to evacuate the entire place. Meanwhile, Sarah goes to Eric's daughter, Elin, and tells her that her dad wants to see her. At first, Ellen refuses, but when she sees the teddy bear phone, she realizes Sarah must have her father, since that toy is her favorite. She immediately agrees to go with her. Sarah takes her to the safe room, a room no one can break into, and then calls Eric's office to inform him that his daughter is with her. Everyone gathers around the room, and Eric asks to see his daughter. He realizes Sarah truly has her. Now he's torn between saving his daughter or protecting his job, but he keeps resisting because Sarah has no solid evidence. Then she tells him that she sealed all the air vents and his daughter will suffocate. The responsibility will be on him. Sure enough, she blocks all the airflow. On the other side, Amin arrives and is terrified out of her mind. Deborah keeps telling Sarah to come out and release the girl, unaware of what Eric has done. Sarah tells her, "You don't know the past of the vile man working with you. Let him confess to what he did, and I'll let the girl out." Then she speaks to Eric and says, "Say something, Eric. See how heartless you are. You chose your daughter's death over telling the truth about what you did." But Eric insists, "I know Sarah. She's kind-hearted. She'd never kill a child." And indeed, just when the poor girl is about to suffocate, Sarah opens the vents again and announces that she'll release the girl, but only if Eric enters the room so she can talk to him. She opens the door, lets the girl out, and Eric enters. She says to him, "What did I ever do to deserve all this from you?" And as she starts to say, "Do you realize how many people died because of you?" he quickly catches on to her plan and figures out she's recording him and that the others outside are listening. He immediately shuts off the recording and says, "I never meant to come near you." But it was the journalist who kept digging into his background, and Eric had clearly underestimated Sarah and her capabilities, despite the fact that she managed to resist, uncover the truth, and do what no one else had done. He admits he never knew about the drug trafficking she she had discovered and claims that everything he did was to protect himself, because if his actions were exposed, he'd be finished for good. He justifies his betrayal by saying he only wanted to secure a future for his daughter, and that he was the one who sent her the fake job offer to get her to apply for a travel permit, at which point he'd have the chance to take her son. Of course, knowing she couldn't live without her son, he assumed she'd break, maybe even die, and that way no one would be able to uncover the truth. It turns out he was also the one who planted Josh's toy so she'd realize her son was kidnapped and act out, leading to her arrest. He admits to deleting Josh from the surveillance footage and that everything he did was to bring her to this breaking point so the German army would believe she'd become weak and unstable, and once they abandoned her, no one would take her claims seriously. Then he pulls out his gun, shoots himself, and fires once at her too, making it look like he killed her in self-defense, turning himself into a so-called hero. But the surprise twist is that Sarah had been recording the entire confession through the teddy bear phone, and everyone hears what he said. Just as Donna is about to escape, they catch him. Deborah rushes in and forces Eric to reveal Josh's location, and an ambulance is called to save Sarah's life. Josh, as it turns out, was hidden in a place no one would have ever imagined. The moment Sarah sees her son, she gathers her strength and they manage to save her. About 2 months later, Sarah is living peacefully with her son and her mother. She had traveled to introduce Josh to his extended family. Suddenly, she hears the sound of an airplane, but this time, she isn't afraid. She knows she's healed and ready to live in peace. Regardless of her being in the military, any mother in the world would have done even more for her child, because a child is priceless. That's just the nature of motherhood, and that's how the film ends.